The recording's in progress. Right. And then I'll just go here and see if it's come. Oh, look, we're live. So there we are. So we'll be able to see some comments, which we may or may be able to talk to people as we go along.
Okay.
Gary, mate, how are you? And thank you for coming on. I got this big push this morning is get in touch with Gary and see if he wants to do a live stream because you can divulge information that lots of people might find useful and necessary. Because a long time ago, like you, mate, I handed my will and my life over to the care of the God, the source, the universe, whatever that thing is. I like it's my innate intelligence, something deep within me. And I promised to try and grow in understanding and effectiveness of carrying the message. And some people say, well, what's the message? And in truth, the way I say it is that the message is in there.
Yep.
What you need to know is already accessible from here. And really, you need to disentangle yourself from all the nonsense that's going on in there. Not that that's not useful, but it's got to really be informed from this here first and up that way, rather than any information coming in there and pushing down that way. And I think that that's the problem.
So
What do you
you'll
think
know
about that so far?
exactly what I'm going to say now, or you'll understand exactly what I'm going to say when we're on air talking. My street face goes.
Your
My
street face?
my street face, me and the world face. I
Yeah,
take
yeah,
my game face. I take it off,
yeah.
and I come from here.
Do
The
you need to
longest.
have that game face on though? Do you this is it, do you need to have that game face on, or is that not just keeping up the pretentiousness and playing a game when if you just stay like we are right now and move out into the world as we are right now, doesn't that like relieve the pressure?
I think so, but whether you can do that fully, I don't know. I'd love to be able to, but again, it comes back to that subconscious conscious, doesn't it? The more the more we see I mean, you say it's 80%, 80% subconscious, whatever the figure is, it's just numbers. But it's making that subconscious conscious because if you don't know, you don't know, do you? So is it possible with your question? I don't know. I've not been able to do it so far fully. I have moments of when I can, when I know I'm coming from here. Like this will be one of them. Um, so I think I'm getting slightly better at it, but up to now I've not been able to fully do it. But for me, it's like what our old mate used to say, didn't he? It's like turning an oil tank around. You do something here, then 3 months later, it just moves a little bit.
And I agree with you. And do we ever, if you listen to the talks of these supposedly spiritually enlightened people, they live in this state of choiceless awareness where whoever they are and wherever they are, they don't have to change themselves whatsoever. So they call it an ego-less state. And I don't see ego. I don't think that we have to destroy the ego.
Mm.
I just think that we have to understand there is such a thing as a normal, healthy, balanced ego that has to operate in the world, right? Right.
Yeah,
And but really it's the shadow bonds, the bondage of self, that's the problem. And I've just put a thing up here is that this talk, because I get inspirations and things that come through, call it getting over yourself. And
yeah,
and
yeah,
I agree with that now, but the self we're getting over is a little S, right? Being guided by a bigger S, you see. And people like Ken Wilber, they call about the little self and the little mind and big mind. And I think what's happened to us, or me, I'll talk about me. What's happened to me, it's almost like I've had to jettison everything that I knew before because it basically took me to a place where I was trying to kill myself. And I've had to let go of everything I knew, right? Everything, every bit of learned information. I basically had to jettison it and just trust this thing that sends me particles of information one breath at a time. And it's almost like it bubbles up because when I don't know what to do, and which is most of the fucking time, to be honest with you, I go like, can you, like, it's like I open my heart up and I say, hello, I don't know what to do here. Give us a clue. Right.
Yeah.
So I ask for some sort of inspiration or some intuition just to give us a clue. And Gary, like you've been through this whole process, right? Like you, this is how we try our best to spend. Well, no, we do our best to spend our life is to be
Mm.
guided rather than intellectually, but intuitively from this innate intelligence. All right. And that's what I do. And more and more and more, I'm seeing just how pretentious I've been and still am in lots of areas
Yeah, yeah.
all my life. So is that not the difference between being authentic and real and not bound to this shadow ego and being pretentious?
So, are we saying is there a difference between honesty and truth?
I don't know. I'll have to feel my way through that. Is there a difference between yes, I think personal honesty depends on how close you are to the
Where,
truth.
yeah, where you are. Truth is a principle of the universe, isn't it? You know, it's truth is ice cold. Honesty comes from as much as I can see, only as much as I can see.
And I think that that's the difference between empathy, right, and compassion. I think compassion's cool. It's cool. It's detached. It's objective reality, right? And I think what's happening with us, and hopefully we try and explain what we've gone through, we're becoming more objective about our subjectivity,
Yeah.
right? And that
Yeah,
means to me is that we can get more space and be more honest and personally self-honest. But I know I can't generally be completely self-honest without talking it through with you and people
yeah,
like you, because you'll say to me, Joe, what you're saying is bollocks, basically, in my
yeah.
opinion. And I don't mind that. I don't mind being picked up by somebody like yourself who's been through the process.
Yeah, it's just like holding a mirror up, isn't it? It's like I, like you, cannot be objective about my subjectivity. I cannot do it when I'm at the limits of those of those extremes. Um, what's that saying that we read? We are extreme examples of self-will run riot.
Yeah, so there's
Um,
nothing wrong with self-will,
no,
right? Unless it's extreme, and when it's extreme it's bipolar, isn't it? Because
yeah,
we live as a human being, we've got two hemispheres that are coming up with different information coming from different sources, right?
yeah,
So really, yoga, to me, we could bring in yoga in by the look of it,
mm,
yoga simply means a union. It means when these two hemispheres, east is east and west is west, and maybe the twain should get together, right, and cooperate with one another, right? So rather than jumping from one side to the other, which is always off balance, there's a way to get out of that in the heart where
mm.
automatic rebalancing takes place, which puts us back in line with our soul's resonance and soul's vibration, which is individual and unique to us at the level of the soul, not at the level of the ego. I'm just speaking as it coming
Yeah,
out here
no,
because,
no, no, no.
yeah,
It's my take on that would be, and I think it's probably the same as you're saying. I'll just use different words. It's left brain, right brain. That the intuition or the intuit or when you intuit something comes in right brain, and then it's translated into words in the left brain, which we speak. And that's how we communicate, isn't it? You know, in words. That said, you know, I definitely, as do you, I know, feel energy
yeah,
when I'm
yeah.
around people. I can feel energy. Um, I'm not attracted, might not be the wrong, drawn. I'm drawn to people, and I repel away from other people.
Me too, mate. And some people might call that judgments, but I think it's just energy awareness. And I
Yeah,
think you get to energy awareness, which is a feel that this is what the world's going through. And I try and explain what I understand by it. Because, Gary, most of the time I've got no idea, mate. I'm
yeah,
learning. Like, all I want to do is get closer to the truth with the big
yeah.
T, or the Tao, or the spirit, or whatever label we want to put on it. I
Yeah.
just want to get closer and be more aligned with the truth
Because
vibration.
it's there. It's there.
It is.
It exists. It just is.
How do you know? How do you know when you're in line with the
because of,
truth?
because of I feel it.
Exactly. Or I feel less, it's almost like I feel less tension and more flow. This is how it works with me, really.
Do you know how I know? It's a knowing that it's going to be okay.
A hopefulness.
I don't know if it's hopefulness. It's Let me just read this out, right? Because this was something I posted out to a few people this morning. Because the stuff we're talking about, our game face in the world face, with people like me and you, we had to put on develop different faces to live out there, and all of it is the unmanageability, if you like. But I couldn't think my way into a new way of acting. I couldn't do it. It's too ingrained in me. And I think that's what we're talking about. But I can act my way into a new way of thinking.
Well, that's very interesting. But can you? Can you
Well,
do that? Because have you got the power? These are rhetorical questions because I know that you know the answer. Have you got the power, though, Gary, to act yourself into a new way of thinking? Or do you have to tap into an unsuspected, hidden inner resource that will provide you with the power to take the action to act in a new way of thinking?
well, being extreme examples of self-will run riot, we know the answer to that.
So we knew the answer. We knew how we needed to change our behavior or our behavior needed to be changed. And we tried to do that, but we were unsuccessful all the time. Why
Yeah, yeah.
was that? What is it, Gary, that was holding us back?
Fear.
Fear. It could be said, couldn't it, that fear is an evil and corroding thread, that the fabric of our existence is shot through with it. To me, that means that we are fear conditioned at every level of our DNA. Right.
Yeah,
What do you think about
absolutely.
that?
I think you're dead right. I think, and it's interesting that you mentioned DNA because it's I'm the product of generations and generations which are inside me, and then me on top of that, me that's in on top of that. So fear, where's the fear come from? Forget everything and run, or face everything and recover. But where does it come from? Is it is it just there? And it for me, it was always there at a low bubbling level. But if one of my in the world instincts were triggered and I felt a threat coming in whichever way that would be, the fear comes in. Once the fear comes in, my character defects are in, jealousy, all that stuff, and then I'm trying to control stuff. And when I'm trying to control stuff, it ain't good.
How do you know and how do you feel when you're trying to control stuff?
Now I know.
Yeah.
Now I know. Most of the time, now I know because I can feel it's like a whip crack in my head. But not always.
How does your body feel?
Well, ask me to drop my shoulders.
Very good. So, do you think that individuals have personal sort of characteristic musculature that identifies with where they hang on to fear and tense themselves up in a fight and flight response? Answer to the question is yes, right? So, this is great, and I love these chats, right? Because do you think that we had to get to a rock bottom before we were willing to let go of all old ideas, all emotions, all attitudes? Did we have to submit and surrender to the next level of our evolution? These are all going to be rhetorical questions
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah. Uh,
because I think that's the purpose of this. So
I,
how do we do it, Gary? How do we get to a point of rock bottom?
you've got to sacrifice yourself, haven't you?
Self-sacrifice, but self with a little s.
Yeah,
So are we sacrificing our habits, our ideas, our emotions? Are we sacrificing the way that we've always processed information? Because
well,
as you know, if you keep doing what you always did, you'll keep getting what you always
yeah.
got. Does that mean we have to change and stop trying to change everybody else in order to suit us?
Serenity prayer.
Yeah. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to
Sort
change
of
the things I can,
me.
and the most difficult, the wisdom to know the difference.
That's the hard bit, isn't
Yeah,
it?
because, and how do you know the difference? Because most of the time you know the difference by taking an action and making a mistake and feel tense about it. And
Right,
then,
let me read this out at this point. Most people stand at the edge of change, waiting for certainty, waiting to feel ready, waiting for fear to disappear. But the universal principle, is certainty only comes after the leap. You don't think your way into a new life, you move into it.
yeah,
You decide, you act. You act. You step into the unknown and make it familiar. Every bold move you make rewires you, rewires you.
yeah.
Every risk you take builds proof that you are capable. Every step forward leaves hesitation behind. So bet on yourself. Burn the old map and build a new path because the future you want is waiting, but only if you move. So God can move mountains, but don't forget to take your shovel.
I agree. I agree. And I don't use the word God as much now. I say good really because it's a
Yeah,
force for good to me, and it stops so much that sort of antibody. Because if I say God, people will think I'm
yeah.
religious, which I'm not. Or maybe
No, nor am I.
I don't follow religion. Maybe religiousness is a different thing, But
Yeah,
um, what I've found out is I tried using my intellectuality, or I don't mean academic for that. I just mean using me thinking or my cognitive
yeah,
ability. I
yeah,
tried to find a way. And I met a bunch of people, like where you met a bunch of people, and we went through a certain step-by-step process that almost like started to disentangle us from the fear-driven habits that we had, right? But we had to take the action, didn't we? It's all
yeah.
very well knowing the philosophy, right, and the theories and the hypotheses, but unless you actually do it, nothing changes. That's my personal lived experience because I was very good. I wanted to change a few words here in the book that we follow and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Just
yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Rarely have we seen a person fail who has
Who
thoroughly
thoroughly followed
followed
up.
our path. Here's
Yeah,
a hard one. There are those who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves.
yeah,
There are such unfortunates. They seem to be born that way. Gary, I thought I was that for a long time,
yeah, yeah,
but they do have the ability to recover if only they can be honest with themselves. And that's why I needed somebody like you who pointed me back to my own behavior. Right. And he said to me, Joe, every time you point the finger, you're trying to blame something outside of yourself. But
yeah,
there's always three coming back at you. And I call that the I, self, and me.
yeah,
Right. Ism, ism.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that
yeah.
the alcohol wasn't my problem. It was the way I was processing information based upon how I'd been socially engineered to become a prisoner and a slave. Quick, over to you. Say something wise.
So the book we're talking about, we won't name it, but um, there's a difference between suggested and suggestive. The stuff we're doing now is post page 164. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little, and that
Exactly.
it's yeah,
Exactly, mate. And I know every single day I feel like I'm only ever scratching the surface.
yeah,
And some traditions like Buddhism, Zen, and all that, they call it having a learner's mind, where you
yeah,
go
yeah,
in expecting to find out something else about how this all works. And it's becoming recently. There seems to be I don't know whether you feel this. I know that you do anyway, but there seems to be a shift going on across the planet where everybody's either really ill, right, or cracking up, or both. What do you think that's all about?
we spoke about or we have spoken about critical mass. Critical mass for me is I mean I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist anyway, um,
Good heavens.
based on based on truth. But yeah, critical mass is I think there is. a definite waking up of people. And I don't mean sitting there woo woo, and all that stuff and levitating off my chair, because the spiritual life for me is not that. The spiritual life is painful. It's distinguishing the truth from the false. The spiritual life for me is extremely painful. It's, for example, it's you sitting there holding a mirror up to me and going, Gary, you're being a tit.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I don't think I'd say tit. I'd probably say twat.
yeah, but so, you know what I mean. Um, but it's like, fuck, I am, and I didn't even say it. Now, here's the thing. Our, what's his word, our guide, or whatever your window cleaner, whatever you want to call him. I sit there with him, with a group of people, and you know what he's like? He watches everything and sees how he doesn't miss anything. And I thought he's just watching. Um, he's watching human behaviour. And he is. But I'll show you the book. I don't know if you've seen it. The Tao of Power.
It's sitting behind me on the shelf.
Is it?
Yeah, yeah.
I've started reading it recently. Been through the Art of Strategy many times, and I've started reading this, and it's like, fuck, I know this stuff. I know this stuff. And what it is, it's knowing. It's just knowing.
Yeah.
It's just knowing. It just is. It's knowing, and part of that is watching human nature, watching everything. I said to him right the other day, I said, "Do you know what? I'm getting the kind of meetings that we go to." I said, "Do you know what? I'm getting pissed off going to meetings at the moment, listening to people saying what they're saying." He said, "Are you now?" I said, "I am, yeah." He said, "What do you think that is?" And I went, oh, "I'm judging, aren't I? I'm judging." He said, "Oh yeah." He said, "Try listening." And I've done this a million times, and I just slipped back into it. He said, "Don't listen to the content. Listen for the intuition in between."
Yeah.
And since I've been doing that, it's totally changed. It's totally changed for me.
It's like the wisdom to be found between the spaces of the breath, isn't it, really? It's the space between breaths, really. And I think more and more modern people are understanding this because, we went through a certain process. And as a result of that process, as the result of the process, right,
The
we had
result,
we
yeah,
had a spiritual awakening,
yeah,
meaning that we went from being, right, a human having a spiritual journey to
yeah,
a spirit on a human adventure, basically,
yeah,
using the human form, the body mind complex of what it is to be human, as the vehicle through which the soul expresses itself. So we
yeah.
started to feel feelings, right? And I think
Different,
I think that the more that we can get out of the way, which means we can de-obstruct by seeing the truth about where we've hang on to stuff that's not in alignment with truth, right? You get
yeah,
more flow, and as you get more flow, you feel better. Things become effortlessness, if effortless, and life begins to mean something at last, right? I had the thing the other day where I heard it again of the promises, right? About, the promises, if you are painstaking, so that means it's going to be uncomfortable, about this phase of our development, you will be amazed before you are
yeah,
halfway through. You are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. You will not wish to, and I can't remember the whole thing here at the moment, but they've come true, Gary. We will
yeah,
see. I've got the thing going up my spine now, right? And that's always an indication that there's some bigger thing, invisible
yeah,
thing, right? And whether that's a Pleiadian or an Arcturian or an Andromedan or even a Perdusian, which is the mob on the scene now, the Perdusians, and we'll talk about this in a minute, right? Or whether it's Archangel Michael or Sandalphon or Metatron or whatever. I don't get involved in that, Gary. Because
yeah,
as
yeah.
soon as I try and put a label on something to say, it's an Arabatena force of which you are the commander of the blah, 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 right, my head goes off into like egomania and I think, whoa, right, so I must be like dead important, me,
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
then again, because it's like in Aikido, I used to do Aikido and stuff like that. Any success you get, the master will give you the brush to go and sweep up the changing
yeah,
room. You know what I mean? Bring
yeah,
you
yeah,
back to earth. And that's
yeah,
fine by me. I really couldn't give a shit. I don't mind someone's suggesting to me, have you thought of that? Or even correcting me. Because what I do is, first of all, if it's my ego, I get it, ooh, and then I
Yeah,
get,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
hang on.
yeah,
There might be a little lesson to be learned in that trigger there, right?
yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah. Always.
it can't be the spirit of divine love and light, right? Because that doesn't get bothered by anything. So it can only be some sort of an ego entanglement, you know what I mean?
Powered by what?
Powered by fear, mate. Powered by defensiveness,
Powered
It's
by emotion.
well, the emotion, as we know, E for energy, motion.
Yeah,
So it's powered by a defensive emotion.
yeah,
It's technically called the defense arousal response. That's
yeah,
what an
yeah,
emotional trigger is, isn't it, really?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Think more about
absolutely.
like there's two sorts of instincts, because really it's about misdirected instinct and faulty logic. That's why we're
Yeah,
all in the state that we're in, because
yeah, yeah.
we've been brainwashed with all sorts of information that's not true. Right. Just look at all the ancient archaeological finds that are coming up now. Right. And we say we've been going for so many thousands of years. We haven't, made civilizations have been here in millions of years. Right. But they're just almost like overlaid with all sorts of shit. And I think what's happening is we're being shown to take off and keep going and keep going to get closer to what the truth is. I see I'm on one now. Quick jump in before I carry on.
Don't carry on it. So do you know what I always, one thing I've learned is to, or I was taught, was to, when we're doing this or when I'm involved in this type of stuff, to write it down when when you hear an intuition, write it down. So I sit here with a pen and a pad, and I write stuff down, and I'm already on about me seventh page here.
See, when I'm writing stuff down now, it's coming out in squiggles and stuff, Gary. I just
Yeah.
want to reply to someone who's put a rude comment up here. Just bear with me. Thank you. I've just like dispelled that one there.
That's easy for you to say.
Right. I want to talk about some stuff that's really outside, way out the box here, right? Almost like in outer space, almost right,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
could
yeah,
be deep inner space. But people keep going on about this great shift in consciousness, right?
yeah,
They think that something called the Schumann resonance is changing in frequency, which is impacting upon our air frequency, which is impacted upon human beings and changing brain waves. What do you think about that, then, Gary?
I was doing some reading the other day about the Schumann resonance.
Yeah, you want to live there?
Uh,
That's funny,
eh?
Bill. Say residence. You really want to live there? Go on. I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I'm
yeah.
just
Do you
being a
know what?
dickhead.
Funny you want to live there. I've had this thing recently. Um, it's all going to be all right because you are just having an experience here that you've chosen, but eventually you're going to go home. And I feel like,
Yeah.
now I don't know, right, whether that's that part thinking, oh, you're just making, and I'm going, you're just making this up. But I don't know. I don't know is the answer. What I do know is things are on the change, 100%. Um, and again, I don't know whether it's for me now. I don't know whether well, in part it is, isn't it? Because it's spring, it's gone light. It's everyone feels, but the daffodils are out. Of course, you're going to feel better. Um, Deeper than that, I don't know. I
This is
don't
what I
know.
got this morning, and I know this is what happens to me. I get almost like a sort of a bipolar typey thing is a manic type feeling in me, and I can feel stuff coming in. This is what happened to me in 1987 when all this
Mm.
stuff was flying in from God knows where it was flying in from, and I wanted
Yeah,
to throw myself off bridges and smash my head against the
yeah, yeah,
wall
yeah,
to let it out. Well, I get that feeling now, but I know it's just information coming from various sources to say you basically got to transmit this now. And communicare means literally to share, right? And so when we share information, we're communicating. So this is about information. It's the delivery of it, but it's also receiving it back as well. And that's
yeah,
what that figure eight is in my mind. I'm only explaining the symbology of the stuff that I get, but there's an infinite thing like that. And it's almost like you've got to share it. You've got to give it away to keep it. right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
what by giving it away, it creates more space for the next level to come in so that we can go forward. But what I got this morning was show them some pictures because what's happening, Joe, is that the sun's rays, that is the bombing out more and more solar flares, and the plasma that's between the Earth and the sun, right? That's actually sending more protons and photons and phonons in, which is impacting upon the 12 systems of the human body. Right. And that's why people may be feeling musculoskeletal pains. They might have digestive problems, respiratory problems, because this healing purging, which means cleaning and cleansing, purgatory, this cleansing energy is like flushing through now. And anything that we've held on to because of fear and pride, right, is being flushed out. And if we're trying to hold on, there'll be a resistance at the level of the unconscious, which will be made conscious through pain. Right. Because
Mhm.
something else that, and you know this very well, is right. Pain is the touchstone of our recovery, but there can be no peace of mind without emotional turmoil. Right. So if you're going
Lovely.
through emotional turmoil, believe it or not, it's positive if you know what it means. If
Yeah.
you know what it means. And it just means that at some level, we're hanging on to something that needs to be looked at, owned up to, and shared with somebody else because it's the sharing with another human being that's
Yeah.
the step of humility to say, look what I've found out about myself and look what I've remembered. And Gary, I think that everybody's got to start doing that to share with somebody that they can trust who's not going to put it up on a video or something like that. Find someone you can trust and say, I don't want advice as such. I just want to, if there's something playing on your mind, best get it off your chest. It's say, look what I found out about myself. Like you. You don't say to me, have you thought of what about doing this, that, and the other? You say, is there anything else? And I'll say,
Yeah.
no. Okay, then piss off. Right.
But this has brought us, spiraled us back to what we started off with, rock bottom. How do you reach rock bottom? And you know, we have to live this way because we have that sword of Damocles
We do.
over us. And the paradox is, what a fabulous way of living. Um, the people who haven't bottomed out, who haven't had the dark nights of the soul, whatever you want to call it, then why would they? They don't have to. Now, I've spoken at massive depth about intuitive stuff. I believe I believe that we had this intuitive stuff from a very early age, and it was coming in, coming in, coming in, and you just didn't know how to deal with it. But then you'd have that, or whatever you did, and it made you feel normal again.
Yeah. There's a line, isn't it, in the AABB, right, that says we have to smash the delusion that we
We're
are
like other
like
people.
normal men and women, or presently maybe. And where I've come to on that, and I'm quite willing to be corrected, but I think there are some people who, for various reasons, have chosen to come here and be born as sensitive people, right,
Yeah,
to pick up frequencies and vibrations and feelings and whatever, energy, frequency, vibration, all that, to pick up beyond the normal scope, the neurotypical sort of antenna. And I think people like ourselves, call it clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, it doesn't matter what you call it. But for some reason, we're like the canaries in the mine, and we've almost like pick up this stuff to be able to say to people, look, I'm picking this up. Well, I've done that all my life. I'm getting this. Something doesn't feel right here. And I mean, mother would say, "Don't be stupid, Joseph. Go and go out and play with the normal children."
yeah,
But
yeah.
I realise
No,
now, my mum, God bless her, and she was sensitive as well. You know what I
yeah,
mean? She always was trying to put me back into the normal scheme of things.
yeah,
And I know now that I don't have to fit into normality. I can do, but I
yeah,
still don't fit. But I can
yeah,
be in the middle of it,
yeah,
observing and watching now. And I'm not saying I'm special. I'm not saying that. I think because every single person has got a different attribute or skill or soul's purpose or vibration, right? And if they work to that, it's effortless in them because it's natural to them,
yeah.
and they might
I
have
agree.
even chosen the curriculum before they came here. Right.
Just make sure next time you check the small print.
Oh, fucking hell. Yeah, but
So the bit you were referring to is on page 30, and the wording of it is, and bearing in mind the book that we're talking about, the sentences don't mention alcohol, right? So what he's saying, and I believe that book has come from, I don't know where it's come from, but I don't. It's not been written
no,
by a. Anyway, the line, the delusion, which means I'm deluding myself, that we're like other people, has to be smashed. Has to be smashed.
yeah, yeah,
Nobody likes to think. Nobody likes to think of themselves as bodily and mentally different from their fellows. No mention of alcohol.
exactly.
No
So,
mention. But
so I
they are.
see
You
that.
are.
We could be called, if you like, and I include you in this, way showers, really. We're way showers. I think that we get information before time or before general time. What I found out this morning is I want to mention the pineal gland because that's all
Yeah.
about biorhythms. And the
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
the world's set up is to keep you away from natural biorhythms. And within us, this is what I got in the show this morning. There's 12 sets of different cells in our central nervous system, each with a different frequency, meaning each with a different time dimension. Right, I thought, wow, that's bloody great. And then I put the video thing on, and here, look, I've got it now behind me, and I feel like crying when this comes in because it's like, well done, son, keep going. So I
Yeah. Yeah.
got Who Wants to Live Forever? You know the Freddie Mercury song, right?
Yeah.
Apparently, he was on Britain's Got Talent. Well, this lad who was singing it, and I got this great big flood of emotion coming up. You know what I mean? And Highlander and Somewhere in Time and all these things. I've been obsessed, and with Continuum, which is like a series from Canada. I've been obsessed all my life with jumping, right, and quantum leaping into different dimensions. And as I especially when I get into ancient Egypt and Assyria and Sumerian and all that, I like part of me feels at home. And I get a different sort. I'm only talking about me. It's not all about me. I'm just explaining what happens to me here, right? And I sort of sit into this dimension, and a whole flood of information comes in that would be seen by most people as, oh, that's old ancient shit that they didn't know what they were talking about. But it's like informing now, Gary, modern
Yeah.
world, right? And sometimes I get real ancient stuff, and sometimes I get real high tech stuff like quantum physics and the God particle and Higgs boson.
Yeah.
And they found now that maybe physicists are saying now maybe Higgs boson isn't the God particle after all, because what produced that? And I'm thinking, oh, for fuck's sake, behave
Yeah.
yourselves.
Do you know what? It's follow the money. It's follow the money. It's Tesla. Why was all this stuff gotten rid of?
Yeah.
Why?
It's like tartar, isn't it? Say tartar, right?
Mm,
Or Tartarian, right?
mm,
It's because
mm.
they're uncovering stuff now. I mean, this Egypt thing. I mean, I look at that. I always look at something with a healthy, skeptical eye. You know what I mean? But this
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
that they supposedly found out in 2022, that's only coming to the fore now. Why is it taking so long? Right. But, if that's true, right, there's almost a part of me that says, yeah, we knew that. We knew
yeah.
that anyway. Yeah. It's like, I tell you what,
Absolutely.
it's almost like nothing phases me anymore, right? Nothing phases me, right? It's not that I can't feel it because I have the feelings, but I don't let the feelings bamboozle me anymore, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's all part of growing, right? It's not
It,
that I know
it,
everything because I feel like I don't know I know next to
the
bugger
more,
all,
yeah,
really.
we realise we know only a little, more is constantly revealed to us.
And that's the great revelation. You get more revelations every day if you keep close to source. And how do you
Yeah,
know
yeah,
you're close to source? Because you're in the flow. You're in the
yeah,
flow. You're not trying to head work everything out and go back and all this sort of stuff. It's almost like you said before, information comes to me and then I'll read something as confirmation. But before, the old Joe, to try and get a head full of knowledge, I'd read things for information and I'd rely on my memory. Don't have to rely on my memory anymore. It's almost like I'm living beyond memory now in a
yeah,
different
yeah,
place, you know.
yeah, yeah. No,
You
I
know.
get it. It's sometimes I feel as if, I'm intelligent. I've got more like you. I've got more letters after my name than fucking in it. But I seem to be forgetting more and more and more and more. And I think that's because I'm relying on my intuition more.
I couldn't agree
And maybe
more.
that's just me. I don't know, but
No, it's not, mate. I can fully, I confirm that myself. And I say to my wife, she said, I can't remember what I've just. I said, love, it's all part of the process. Oh, what do you mean this shift? You're not going on about that shift again. I think, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Can
So
I
see
just talk? Go
this
on.
Egypt thing. I know that I know there's something going on. I don't know what it is, but I know there's something going on there, and I don't know what it is, but I know. And when it if it's in my lifetime, in this guise is revealed, I won't be surprised. It'll be great, yeah, it'll be fabulous, but I won't be surprised.
Neither will I, mate. And something that's sometimes hard to like come to terms with is the atrocities that are going on across the planet now.
Yeah,
But at one level, and this is difficult, and this is where I feel, and I could be completely wrong because it's not that I don't have feelings, but I understand things a bit better now. But if the human being is just the vehicle for the soul to express itself through, then in a way it's secondary to what's happening across the planet, right?
mm,
It's not that the body and all this stuff, right? But maybe it's about understanding things at a different sort of level and consciousness.
mm,
Because all this stuff that's happening, I mean, I know that there must be a necessary disintegration of all systems across the planet. I was told that many years ago,
yeah,
that everything must fall apart
yeah,
to be scattered into its constituent components, to
yeah,
be reassembled and go forward in a more positive, compassionate, and caring way. And I said, can you run that past me again? Because I've got no idea. And it's
yeah, yeah,
brought me down the avenues of, in the beginning was the word, let's call that the Big Bang. And from then, there's all those atomic explosions and fusions that go on. And then we have all this particles, this stardust. The stardust condenses then, and as it gets further away from the Big Bang, it materializes.
yeah,
So then in the end, we're left with protons, neutrons, and electrons. So really, it's about photons and phonons, because the phonons are like the sound vibrations, this small particle. So, and then something then, at the moment of human conception, draws all those together depending
mm,
on the time, right? And
mm,
that's what astrology is all about. It's the
mm.
stuff that you draw in from the cosmos that determines who you become and the purpose for your existence. And I'm saying that's very, very nice, that right? And what do you think about that?
I think we've spoken before about time and does time exist? Is it real? And the way I can't remember if it was you or no, it was you. You should think of it as the old record player. And pick it up and put it back, move it forward. And I don't know. My brain can't conceive that all this could be going on at the same time. So, but in part, I kind of know that it is. Um,
But isn't that the jump that I was saying before about the timeline jump? Maybe we get attracted to something or something attracts us to say you need to just listen to this now together. And suddenly we're almost like transported back to an ancient time that's still going
yeah,
because the information's
yeah,
still relevant. I mean, I,
yeah,
I don't fully understand that leap between different
yeah,
dimensions, but I do feel though, and see, here's the next thing that's coming to me, that there's these 12, it's always about 12.
yeah, yeah,
13 to me is the Christ. It represents the heart. The heart's connected to the 12 cranial nerves. The cranial nerves are connected to 12 different frequencies, which are different aspects of consciousness. They've all got different time dimensions associated with them. And within those time dimensions are sub dimensions that determine our soul's purpose. And that's why we're all individuals. So there's like 12 nodes or points. I'm just going to keep going with this because I don't
yeah,
fully
yeah,
understand what's coming out here, but it's coming
yeah,
out
yeah.
that quickly. And in the end, it's like big deal, right? What do you want to do now is go make a cup of tea now. So in the end, it's all very well having all this information, but if you get distracted by it, and if it doesn't provide you with some sort of necessary action to take, what's the point of it at
Yeah.
all?
Yeah. See that you mentioned, as you know, I'm not in the slightest bit religious, and probably, truth be known, anti-religious. But you know that's as it is at the moment. And I was talking to someone a couple of weeks ago. He said, "And I know you're not religious, but just have a think about this. Bearing in mind we're talking about things being the Great Awakening, the Great Shift." And he said the second coming of Christ is not a fella coming down and doing whatever. It's waking up in here, the Christ within. And I was like, fuck, yeah, I'll have that.
Well, I see that, and I see
Yeah,
it's
getting it.
not the second coming of Christ to me. It's like Christine. I think it's a feminine thing, and I think it's
Maybe.
I think it's all to do with Kundalini awakening. I think what's happening is there's a natural Kundalini awakening happening, freaking people out because they're getting up, like that happened to me in 1987, right? It was awakening and it was sending all these different streams of consciousness, but there was no way to regulate it. But I know now that Gary and Shanine's on here and she did the true nature of breath work, right? There's different breathing techniques that you can use to regulate and slow down if need be, or quicken up the information that's coming in to suit you and how you work as an individual soul. You know what I mean? So breathing, really, it's so important, as Buddha is reputed to have said. If you want a fast track to like getting grounded and feel good and everything, he said, just become aware of your breathing, right? And I know, Gary, that if I'm feeling disturbed, I've got to step back now, tune back into my heart, open it up with the 6 breaths a minute breathing. And then there's other breathing techniques. They've also shown me as well that the roof of the mouth and where you put your tongue, right, you can actually use, there's like a carousel. It's almost like a dial on the roof of your mouth, and where you put your tongue and how you breathe in that way will take you to a different level of consciousness and almost transport you. You can almost like use it as a sat nav, in fact satellite navigation, right?
Yeah.
But you become the drive then, rather than it taking you away. You can say, I'd like to pop down to Bognor Regis on Perdusha today. And then, okay, then 1, 2, 3, stick your tongue there, breathe like this, and whoosh, off you go, astral traveling. And astral traveling means the stars, doesn't it? It means
Yeah.
so you become like a better driver. That's where I'm up to with stuff.
Yeah. Do you know what this all this fucking traveling to Mars and all that stuff? We ain't gonna get where we're meant to go with fucking smoke coming out the back of a rocket. That's not that's not
Oh,
gonna
ye
happen, is
of
it?
little faith.
Fucking hell.
Gary, I got to tell you something because they talk about like full like transportation of the physical vehicle as well. But when I was on the piss, I've told you this before, I'd be locked up in a cell, right?
Yeah.
And I'd see people the next day and they say, how you doing, Joe? Yeah, you look terrible. And I'd say, well, I've been locked up all night. Well, they say, we saw you yesterday afternoon down by Seacombe Ferry. You never looked better. And I'm thinking, well, I was locked up. Now, part of me head goes like, wow, I'm not having that. And there's another part of me that says, son, right, don't discount anything just yet because that might have been your astral body, which was appear. I don't know, mate. I'm only
Do you
just
know
scratching the surface of
that
this
you
stuff.
know that definition of insanity is who was it? Einstein. Someone said it. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Yeah,
It is, but for me, the definition of insanity was doing the same thing over and over again, knowing what the result was going to be, but doing it anyway.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's the thing about expectation, and expectare means to look outwards, right?
Yeah,
And I think that we have to, well, this is through my experience, we have to stop looking, expecting anything at all and start
anything.
inspecting. 'Cause
Yeah,
it's this inner reality. I mean, there's nothing really outside of ourselves from a perceptual point of view. It's almost like what's going on within us, right, is projected outside of us, I mean, and I know that now, right? I know that.
yeah,
And
yeah.
what's
I
what's
just want
that?
to go back to that giving
Yeah,
it away to keep it stuff
yeah,
and self-centeredness and the ism, if you like, self-me. Um, I still today, my first thought, and I love my kids more than anything in the world, as you do. But my first thought in any given situation, first thought is how is this going to affect me?
yeah,
It's
yeah, of course.
always my first thought. How is this going to affect me? I do good. Well, you've been with me, in that place. I do so, and every week I'm like, oh, fucking hell, I've got to go down there again and talk to these fucking dickheads again now. And and I'm like, oh, and I've been doing it 10 years now. And every week I come out and I'm walking on air. You'd think I'd
Yeah,
know by now, wouldn't you?
yeah. Well, I'm
You'd think
saying,
I'd,
mate, and we've shared this. I mean, the honesty is, oh, here we fucking go again.
yeah.
And I get like, hang on, you signed up for this, it's your job, carry on,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
then the
yeah.
ego side, fuck, I'm tired, and then
Yeah,
it
yeah,
takes me back to like If by Rudyard Kipling, and it's basically saying in that if you can carry on when you're totally exhausted and all that, it's all
yeah,
part of the journey. Stop moaning and get over yourself, and that's what I'd like to talk about in now because we have, don't we? We have a sort of rigid, tough discipline that we have to stick to because we've got the
mm,
sword of Damocles hanging up. If we don't keep in line with this spiritual pathway, then it's very possible that we're going to drink again. And I've seen people like you, our friends, have gone back on the piss after
yeah,
20, 25, 30, 35, and 40 years and being dead within 6 months.
yeah.
That's what I've got to look forward to. So I'm almost forced to maintain connection with this source of all information or
I don't think it's
innate.
almost. I don't think it's almost. I think totally,
Yeah, yeah,
totally. And the line that I quote all the time, and I love it because it's a fucking constant reminder. Is and we'll use alcohol because that's what we're talking about. Alcohol is a subtle foe. We are not cured of alcoholism.
yeah.
What we have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Spiritual is our thinking.
I agree, mate. And as you said before, the spiritual life for us is not a theory. We have to live it,
Yeah,
right? And I don't think, see, the most important thing that I got from the journey so far is I knew what I needed to do, but I didn't have the power to do it.
yeah,
And so I had to tap back into a source of where the power was. And that to me is my innate intelligence.
yep,
It's always there. And that started step by step is when I started to do a personal inventory and to see where my energy and power was locked up in fear, right? Or things, because there's another expression that we use a lot. You're only as sick as your secrets.
yeah,
And the
yeah,
secrets are buried in your unconscious, not wanting to see the light of day, but it's the light of day that's going to release you from it and release all the power that's keeping all the shit. So, what was in there? Guilt, remorse, all these things were keeping hold of the power that I needed
mm,
in order to change my behavior. So
yeah,
it wasn't so much the thinking because I knew what I needed to do. I tried, Gary, you know that 9 years in AA, I tried to grit my teeth and do what was suggested of me, but I needed to surrender because there was always a tricky dicky part of me that says, I'll think my way out of this and show these bastards. And
yeah,
Gary,
yeah,
that's still on my shoulder today, mate.
yeah. Me
Right?
too.
Oh, fucking
Me,
right. It's
me
like,
too.
these tossers need to listen to me because I know all the answers. And I know, and I'm saying this, right? No, I don't. The bigger
Yeah,
part of me
yeah,
knows
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
bigger
yeah,
part of me knows that I know next to fuck all now, right?
yeah,
Thank God. And
yeah,
and I'm willing to be taught now, which I never was because I
yeah.
thought I was the professor, right?
Did you ever get that bit where, well, you have, I know you have. You know when because you are intelligent and you do know stuff. Clearly, you know stuff. And people would say something, and you'd go, "No, fuck off! You, I'm right."
Yeah,
I used to get that all the time, and I still do sometimes. Not so much, but what I do now is I tend to think, well, I don't see it that way. This is how I see it. Can we discuss this?
yeah. So it's an
And that
inclination, and I think that's what they call attitude. And attitude just means this is the way that I see it. And when people ask me something now, what do you feel about this? What do you see? I tell them. And you know what, Gary? If they argue with me or they don't like what I've just said, that's not my fucking problem, mate. Right?
no,
That's their problem. But I
yeah,
used to then change the story to suit them. And I don't do it anymore. I'll just say, no, hang on a second. You asked me. I'm telling you, I'm sorry that you don't like it, but this is the way I see it. And by the way, I'm quite willing to listen to what you see, what you say, and how you feel about stuff because I could be wrong here, right?
yeah,
I could be wrong. Joe, Gary, that's a massive change for me
yeah, yeah.
because pride, it's so subtle. That's why it heads the list of the seven deadly sins, mate. Right?
got them there. Just what I've written just down now is altered attitude.
Yeah.
You know what
Hey,
that
hey.
stands for?
Hey, hey,
Yeah,
mate.
altered attitude.
Yeah.
Skill set. You know, when you said I'd be talking to someone, we build up this skill set. So I'll be talking to someone. Um, I would 100% back myself on a one-to-one situation because my instincts, if you like, are so attuned because of my condition. They're so attuned to pick up on the slightest little change in people, and I will change course in a business situation. However, However, in a life situation, I would now do what what you've just explained. It's like, well, you've asked me. That's my thoughts on it. That's what I see. If you don't like it, well, you know, it is what it is. But we build up this skill set, so I can be talking to you, but I'm aware of what one of my dogs is doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Of course I do, mate. Well, we're good, aren't we? Because we've developed the ducking and diving, dodging and weaving thing,
Yeah,
where we're in hypervigilance mode. So, not only am I listening to you, but I'm listening to me missus out there.
yeah,
Listen, that's all going on. But where I used to get distracted and go and deal with that, I can sort of keep refocusing now on what's
yeah,
important here and what's going on here in this now moment, which
yeah,
is the
yeah, yeah,
only
yeah,
reality, right? And this is
yeah,
existence itself. That's the
yeah,
only important thing. So the more that you can see how you get distracted and the more that you can like shine the light of your heart on the present moment, I think that's getting closer and closer to the truth. And Maslow would call this the journey to self-realization and self-actualization. And I think that the way the world's set up, it keeps you away from finding out what your intuition's trying to guide you to. That's the whole thing. That's why you can get Netflix the next to fucking nothing now. Prime Video. There's everything there. There's all sorts of naked women and naked boys, naked. There's all sorts of. This is how you can win, and you can have this big house here. Everything to take you away from things that you think that will give you security, when the only true security is know thyself, and to thine own self be true.
be true. So I think I don't think I know whatever the cabal or whatever they are when they're doing this with that hand. It's this hand that's doing the real stuff over here. All these wars and all this stuff. You know, all the stuff in you, all that stuff. It's like fucking hell. Hang on, what's the real reason behind this? Because it ain't that.
See, there's the next thing is people keep asking me because they think in some way I'm like attuned to what's coming up in the future. I've got no idea, mate. But they say to me, what do you think's going to happen? Will there be a world war? I say, well, to be honest with you, I don't fucking care. I've
Yeah,
just got today. I want to try and find as much joy as possible,
yeah,
right? And I steer away now from. I'm not. It's not a judgment. It's just like it's what I feel. Anyone who's negative, like oh, and this is happening, and this is happening, and this that, I'm not interested. Say with all due respect, right? Here's some tools where you can overcome that there, or what are you gonna do about it? Because I wanted
yeah,
somebody else to fix me all the time.
yeah,
And I was told quite clearly in Chinese, right? In Chinese, the Tao of power,
yeah,
the that ray of sunshine, that
yeah,
one, right? He said to me, well, what are you gonna do about it, right? Because everybody else is tied up in their own like misery, right? Let them get on with it and
yeah,
find out. Go into the source of joy and creativity, and it's almost like when you're creating from your heart of hearts, your soul, right? It's almost like the problems dissolve all by themselves. And I believe that, Gary, is rather than being problem focused and finding solutions and being clever about, oh, look what I've done to get round that. Why don't you just like leave it? Because it's not that important. It'll take care of itself. Unless, of course, you get the push from the spirit or whatever to say, no, you have to deal with that now, and then you can go and play out. But it's like, to me, it's like a big game now.
yeah,
And
yeah,
by the way, I'm not saying that to like sort of take away from people who are going through real shit and and that's where they are and all that. I'm not trying to do that. But this is I'm expressing is I've gone through all that and
yeah,
this is where I am. Gary, I might die tomorrow. Oh, don't
yeah.
say that. Well, no, it's fucking true. I might
True.
die tomorrow. I might get that angry that I lose that mental defense against that first drink. I might pick up a drink. And if I
Yeah,
pick up a drink, I'll probably take out a few people before I go myself. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. So I think what we're saying here on the I hate that word, the journey, but the let's use it anyway because I can't think of another one. But the journey that we've been on is I've learned that, I'm responsible for what I say. I'm not responsible for what you hear.
I'll have to try and sit with that and work it out. No, it's true. It's true.
I don't
It's
mean
true.
you. I mean
No, no,
whoever
I
I'm
know
talking
generally
to.
speaking, but that's perception, isn't it? That's how we perceive things and how we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are.
Yeah,
And the way that we see the world is generally programmed and conditioned in us within the first
absolutely.
7 years of our life. And
Yeah,
not only do we have to contend with that, we've got the crystallized behavior of our ancestors,
DNA.
right,
Yeah,
in our DNA. Because DNA to me is just where it's like a video recording of what they did. It's almost like they passed those behaviors on to us, which may have been adaptive at the time, but are
yeah,
now maladaptive in this present dimension of time. And as it says in the little book, in this box of space and time that we find ourselves in now. And the reality of it is, Gary, is we're in this 3D reality, but we don't have to live, we need to live in the world, but not be part of the world. And that's the whole thing is be in the world, not of the
not
world, really.
the world. So I think I've told you this before, but when I was born, I'm from Liverpool originally, from Irish stock.
Don't
I can
even go
remember,
down there. There's trouble
yes,
brewing.
I can remember me. We were actually in the Echo at the time because I was the fifth generation born when I was born. I was the fifth generation, so I had my mum, my nan, my great nan, and my great great gran. My great great gran lived in a tenement on Scotty Road in Liverpool, little Irish woman she was. And she was born in, I think it was 18, from memory, it was 1875, something like that. She was born. And I can remember talking to her. I was only little, but I can remember talking to her. She died when she was nearly 100. And she said, I can remember talking to my nan, who was born in the 1700s. Right. So talking about DNA and crystal, behavior, my upbringing has been influenced in living memory by people living in the fucking 1700s.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know it's amazing, amazing. What if you could go and through this astral traveling, consciously choosing, what if you could go back and sit with your great, 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 great nan and sit with her and say, "How are you doing?" Right.
Yeah,
And she
yeah,
would
yeah,
say to you probably is, "Well, this is how we used to see it here."
yeah.
Right. And you could say, "Well, this is how it's happening here." Right. And then you come back then with that information. I don't know, Gary. I'm only starting to play with this now because I'm starting to understand things that we can almost go and sit with Socrates. And you find out that a smelly old bastard, he gets a few drinks down him and all this
Yeah,
information
yeah,
comes out
yeah, yeah,
because it wasn't him that was saying it. It was being channeled through him from source at the time, from some sort of trillion year old. I don't know, mate. It really doesn't matter. But look, we're happy, aren't we? We're having a laugh. This could
yeah,
be the greatest load of old bollocks. Here's the important thing is, if anyone's listening, right, how do you get to a place where you can jettison your head and start living from your heart? And just before you answer the question, because these are all rhetorical, I know that part of our job is to raise the rock bottom so that people maybe don't have to go through 10 to 15 years to 20
yeah,
years of suffering. How do you do it? And I hope that we're doing that by sharing our experience, strength, and hope from our hearts,
yeah.
right?
So,
Without embellishment, well, with a little bit of poetic license.
yeah, 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 yeah. I think the answer to that is, well, I don't think I know, is having had a spiritual awakening as the result, not as our result, it's an important word, of these steps. We try to carry this message to other. So we try to carry what message? Well, the message is that if you do those steps, you will have a spiritual awakening. But the problem is that to even put yourself in a place where you're going to do that stuff and to live that way, you have to near kill yourself.
And this is the thing, the thoughts that came to me when you're on the live, because this is what happens to me, and I'm only explaining what happens to me. Tell them this, Joe. Tell
Yeah,
them
yeah.
this, right? That if you're feeling emotionally disturbed, it's
Mm,
because at some level you've perceived a threat
Yeah.
to your ego self, not
Yeah.
to your real self, to your ego self. Your
Yeah.
ego self is your second nature self. It's
Yeah.
not your original, essential, true nature. So the problem is that you're actually fighting an illusion. So you're
Yeah.
defending something that's not you, right? And I'm like, oh, you know, right? You know, it's your pretentiousness that you're defending, right?
The spiritual axiom is the disturbance is always in us.
Yeah. It's always in us and it's a projection of, so really it's all about learning, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
learning to let go because essentially we don't have to learn anything. We don't have to get hold of anything. We literally have to let go of everything.
Yeah.
Right? And I keep getting this information, and I think it's going to come out in the future about epigenetics. It's not the gene code, right? The original genetics, right, is pure, right? The original template, the DNA template is pure, right? It's the epigenetic shroud based upon past actions from ourselves and our ancestors that's blocking us from the light coming through. So how do you do it is you get a disturbance, you say, hang on a second, before I say, look what you've just done to me. You've said a word there that's made me feel bad, right? And I can't help it anymore. So I don't give you shit. It's just a word, right? So, you know, you're like a bit of a victim of a word I've just used. Whose problem is that? You know, that's called compassion, that, by the way. Yeah, but the whole, I don't know, we take over because I've just lost completely what I was going to say then.
No, it's. Um, I'm just thinking. If sometimes when I do this stuff with, the other fella,
Yeah,
I'm like, what are we going to? How are we going to start off? He says, just say something daft.
yeah,
Just say something. So, and I'm like, it could go on for 2 or 3. Well, it does normally go on for 2 or 3 hours. I'm like, what the fuck have we just been talking about? You should have no idea.
it's like, yeah. But it's a bit like when we work with people, isn't it? They tell us all their life, you know, this like I did to somebody. I shared all sorts of stuff, and he's like, he's looking, and he looks bored of all the stuff that I've been trying to kill myself and got this guilt and remorse over. He looked bored, and I said, "Are you listening to me?" He said, I'm hearing everything that you're saying, right?" And at the end, he more or less said to me, "Is that it?"
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Fuck
yeah.
you know. And this is serious. And when I left his house that day, he said to me, just go and sit down and work out exactly what's just happened, what you've just disclosed. Because he said to me in the end, he said, is there anything that you're going to take to the grave with you that you
Yeah.
can't share with me? And I said, honestly, nothing. I can't think of anything. He said, if anything, he said, you're almost clearing space here because stuff may bubble up. Don't worry about it because right at this moment in time, you have solemnly declared to me that there's
Yeah,
nothing in there. And he said, and I can tell that you've been completely truthful with me.
yeah,
Right. And I went home that night, Gary. I was living on my own. It was in a ninth floor flat, a real shithole it was. Right. And I just had the light on because I couldn't go to bed without the lights on. They're
yeah, yeah.
38 years, 37 years of age, still frightened of the fucking dark, you know what I mean? And I sat on the bed and this like feeling of peace came down, which comes down quite a lot. And this fucking voice said to me, Joseph, we love you. And I said, thank you. Fuck off. Fuck off. Right. Because I thought I was going back to the psychiatric department. Fuck off. Come back in the morning when it's light. And this is no shit, mate. Because no point in telling lies. Right. I got up the next day. I was in a completely different box of space and time. So I'd had
No, I
a
get it.
timeline shift into a
Yeah,
different reality. And that's happening more and more and more now.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Because as the sun's rays, because there's the great central sun, there's universes upon universes. Right at the center of all that is, right, there's a great big move taking place because God's growing up as well, right? And
yeah,
people are
yeah,
like, oh, what's he saying, right? But I'm only saying that is because I think that there's almost like a spiral dynamic where the energy that's pushing everything out is still going. And they're talking about the energy that's contained in black holes. Well, this is about black holes and our souls. And well, when I say our souls, I mean our individual soul's purpose. Come
yeah.
on, I had to get that joke in, mate. I was waiting for that. Right.
So,
But
just going back to that when you were doing your stuff with him, and is there anything else that you want to get out? He said to me, when you're doing your fear bit, he said, what are your fears? What fears have you got? And I said, well, I don't think I've got any, you know. Oh, I'm scared of snakes. I'm scared of, he said, oh, fuck off. I said, what? I said, what do you mean? He said, what is it that you don't want me to know? What is it that you're afraid of me finding out? And I was like, oh, right. And once I went through it, right, and did that stuff and wrote everything down, and I thought, I can't fucking tell him. I can't say that. I can't say that. So I started going through it, right, and there was, this a couple of things that you leave to the end, don't you?
Yeah.
And I thought, right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. So I read that, and do you know what I heard? Doesn't give a fuck. It's not that he does. It's not for him. It's for me to get it
Exactly.
out.
Exactly. And the thing is, it's almost like, and I can see the true purpose of a confessional in
Yeah, yeah,
Catholicism and Christianity and stuff like that, that the original purpose was get the stuff off your chest because you're obviously contrite and you don't want to do it anymore. It's an act of contrition, blah, blah, blah. I can see the purpose in that, right?
yeah,
But then when they start putting the punishment on, oh, you dirty bastard, right? And you've been thinking about her down the road and this, that, and the other. Oh,
yeah,
Jace, I've developed an accent. You know, and Father Quinn there, and there was all sorts of shuffling going on behind the kit. Don't even go there, Joe. But it was like, and you did what? Right? And I thought, and I'll tell you one, this is when I could only be 7 or 8 years of age.
yeah,
It was Lent, right?
yeah,
I'm on Lent and I've given up sweets for Lent, right?
yeah,
And David Killen, who had more money than us because he was like a posh boy, right? A
yeah,
posh boy, lived around the corner. He was an only child, you know what I mean? Right.
yeah,
So he had more money than us. He bought some Horlicks sweets, right? And I'd never had a fucking Horlicks sweet before. And he offered me one and I had it, right? And I wanted to kill myself with guilt. I couldn't sleep because I've had a sweet in Lent. This is no shit. And I went, right? And I told the priest and he went, you naughty boy. That was it. Fucking that's what my early life was like, mate. And I used to
yeah.
have a recurring dream, and these were probably extraterrestrial adventures that I was
Mm.
on. Every night for months and months and months, I would have the same dream of falling down the stairs, and the devil was there with his pitchfork, tripod, triune, whatever, what thing, right, waiting to spike me at the bottom. And my poor mother and father were up every night trying to cajole me, you know what I mean? And I was terrified from an early age, and I used to see things coming at me and all that business. I don't know why I've come out with all that, but it's those things, Gary. I was the fabric of my existence was shot through with fear, mate.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's all I was doing is I was still afraid at 37, 38 years of age of the same things because they were trapped in my childhood memories, really.
yeah, yeah. And it is from 0 to 7, isn't it? That we pick up, we learn all that stuff.
But then there's all sorts of stuff now about chemical stuff that goes on in fetal and embryonic developments, got all to do with the chemical changing of our genetics. Gary, there's so much, and I honestly see now that if we can live beyond memory, even beyond what the so-called the Akashic records, right?
Yeah,
If
yeah,
we can live beyond that in a place of neutrality, then
yeah,
more information comes to us that's relevant to the actions that we individually need to take in order to flourish and flower more.
yeah. And I think that you're right in that our souls do have a soul purpose. I don't know what it is. I don't know how. I just keep doing the next little. What did we say before?
Keep
It's
doing the next job that's given us on a daily
do the
basis.
next job that you're given. If you want a big job, ask for a big job. If you want answers, ask the questions. If you want big answers, ask big questions.
I used to have a thing in me that says, well, this doesn't apply to me. See what I mean? These principles don't apply to me. So there's always a part of me that's trying to rescript the principles that are perennial. They keep coming round. They've been coming round since creation itself started, right? They are unchangeable, mate, right? Because they're open principles. And
Yeah, yeah,
the guidance we follow, isn't it? Honesty,
openness.
open-mindedness, and
Yeah,
willingness.
yeah,
And the
yeah,
willingness to do something that we've done all of our lives to do the opposite of it, right?
yeah,
But then the
yeah,
little kid comes in, do I have to? And the
yeah.
answer is, come on, son. You know that you do. And what
There
will
is.
it what and then as you said before, well, what will it give me? See all about me. And in reality, it really is. all about me as an individual. It's
Yeah.
not about objectiveness, it's about subjectivity to the nth degree.
And it's the truth seems to always be in the paradox, doesn't it? So the joy of living, how would you describe the joy of living? How have you found it?
I just say, sort of guide me in the direction, and some sort of thing pops up, and you meet somebody, and you say, "Oh, I haven't seen you for ages," and you have a chat with them, and this, that, and the other. It's almost like your intuition or this innate satellite navigation system
Yeah.
will guide you. So you've almost got to let go of the reins as well, really, and allow it. It's like the owl guru who's sitting with the two bullocks, right? Normally the two bullocks represent, in my mind anyway, the left and the right hemispheres, and they're always like trying to go in one direction and the other. And now when they let go and you've got the old master, he's going like that, just tapping it and turning left. I think that's how my life seems to be. If I get out of the driving seat and almost like allow myself to be chauffeur driven through life, not by something outside of myself,
Wu
actually
Wei.
something deep. Wu Wei, because I have that phrase where I live on the Whittle, where we live on the Whittle, you
Yeah.
know, woo woo works wonders for well-being on the Whittle. I say that now, right? But it's Wu Wei works wonders, mates, because then I say, and
Yeah.
actually we can change that and talk about Wu Wei, which is the way of the Tao. And it's
Yeah.
almost like surrendering to be chauffeur driven and guided to the next experience, really.
Yeah. The problem is, but again, I think I'm getting better at it. Is I'm trying to live this new life, trying to do it, but my old one keeps coming back and trying to drag me back. And
I'm going to say
I don't,
something
know,
in there.
I don't know whether it'll be
There
like
is
that
no
for.
try. There is no try because I know, and I've known you for a long time. I know that you do your best every day, like I do, Gary, like everybody does.
Yeah.
Everybody does their best every day. And he
With
was
the
right, that
information
little
they've
owl
got.
fella. Like, there is no try, mate. Right,
Mm.
there isn't. And even on the days when you say you're going to clean your room up and you don't get round to it, right, you still did your best, mate. So you can
Mm.
let yourself off the hook. That's the way that it is. That's the way that it was gonna be. That's the way that it should have been, and that's the end of the story, really. It's to let yourself off the hook every step of the way. I
Yeah.
just want to say something before, if there's
Yeah.
anybody listening to this, right, and they're in the depths of turmoil and anxiety and depression, and they're even having suicidal ideation, like I can't handle this anymore. In truth, it's really because, right, and just bear with me on this when I say it, because you're not getting your own way, right? Now, just bear with me now before you kick off and have a go at me, because that's your ego way. The true way is to allow yourself to let go and be guided back to the real way, which is the real you. Because we can only really feel emotionally disturbed if some person, place, thing, situation, event isn't going the way that we think that it should. Right. And that's called playing God. And when I got told that in Chinese by, the Field of Dreams, his name was Ray,
Yeah.
when I got told of that, initially I got a oof right in me gut, and I thought, who the fuck do you think you are? And then it went, it's true, Joe. You're not getting your own way. You're throwing your rattle out of the pram like a
Yeah.
little child. It's time for you to grow up. And this is how you grow up. You stop following information from outside. Don't discount it because it might lead you back to your heart.
Yeah.
But the answers that you're looking for is already contained with you, in you, and it's only waiting for the right time to emerge. When's the right time to emerge? When you surrender and say, go ahead then, show me, and I'll listen to I'll try and act upon the information that you're sending to me.
So you know that you feel it in your gut. You know that saying, gut, go with your gut. I
Yeah.
tend not to go with my gut today because if I feel it in my gut, it's generally fear, which is what you've just been talking about. And what happens is it'll hit me in the gut and then comes up like a fucking mushroom cloud into my head. And then I'm doing a million miles an hour, thinkies, And
I do try,
again,
you
it's
know,
because I'm not getting my own way. Things
but
aren't going to the script I've written.
yeah, expect so to live a life without expectation, right? I mean, there's a part of us, our ego say, well, look, this is how I'd like it to go. But in the end, and this is embedded in me now, is however, thy will, not mine, be done. And when I say the my will, that's the ego's desires. Thy will is the soul's desires, which is me, which is my higher self, which is my deeper self. Call it what you like, right? But be careful that you don't get too hooked on the word and the label itself. Because if I say Holy Spirit, somebody might say, oh, he's religious. And so a block comes in immediately. An expression I heard is oftentimes, right, intellect thwarts intuition. And that just means that our head, I call that the headator jumps in to say,
Yeah,
I'll just chew a bit on that and see what egomaniacal answer I can come up with, you know what I mean? So
yeah, yeah.
again, it's ego's not the problem. As a human being, we need an ego. This is just my way of explaining. It's egomania that's the problem, right? It's the bipolarity and the extremism. It's out of neurotypical, and we're all neurodiverse, into neurodivergence. That's the problem. So the neurodivergence brings with it a sensitivity, but when we don't know, we're emotionally sensitive, right? But intolerant of our own sensitivity. So this is not about becoming tolerant of others. It's about becoming tolerant and understanding of our emotional reactivity. And that's the problem. Because if we're in emotional reaction, we're in our head and we're on the defensive and we're of no use to anybody, including ourselves, because we're totally exhausted all the time. I mean, this is
Absolutely.
like this is deep, like energetic dynamics here. Gary, I didn't know any of this, mate.
No, well, you don't know what you don't know, but you sit in, well, you sit in any meeting, but specifically what the ones that we go to, and you know that everybody in there is sensitive. You know that they are, every single one of them, and the problem is that they've spent their whole life proving out there or trying to prove that they're not.
Exactly. Exactly. That's like I tried to, 'cause I was working on the window cleaning, pretending not to be afraid of heights. Fucking hell. I think I told you the story is, and I was doing on the roofing. My brother took me on roofing because I lost my job and everything. Right.
Yeah, yeah,
And I'm on the apex of a roof, frozen in fear, right? And the lads who were roofers were running around me on the
yeah,
roof, jumping and laughing at me, and I'm stuck, right? And they
yeah.
had to basically prise me legs off the apex and guide me down. Anyway, when I went back then at lunchtime, we all went to pub, right? Gary, you know the score. I had a few pints down me. I was up doing the same as them because it dissolved the fear. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
that's what the
yeah,
drink did for me, right? And the other thing is, the drink helped me, my egomania, to keep fantasizing. And in the philosophies that we work to, above all, it says above all, for anybody listening who's on the same program as us, right? It says above all. That must mean it's important. We
yeah.
must reject fantasizing, right? That's a hard one, that mate. Because with imaginations and heads like ours, it's like, I wonder if this is going to take me to stardom. I have this all the time, like, you know what I mean? Oh, I've just said a good thing. My lecture went well. I must be going to save the world. And I go, oh, fuck off. Get
Yes,
back
yeah,
here.
yeah,
Get
yeah.
back here. Take the brush, sweep the floor. You know what I mean? Because I've still got all these sort of maladaptive attributes or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, yeah. What is it? It's head in the clouds, feet on the ground, or something like
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, but I say my head was firmly planted in the clouds, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No groundedness, no centeredness, no nothingness, really. It was
I
egocentricity and lack of groundedness.
yeah. I used to want to rule the world, and now I just want to live in it.
Well, peace of mind. And the only thing that this philosophy that we live by is it promises you one thing, right? And there are those promises. People. I might put the link up to the promises, right? But if you follow, if you keep close to this way of life, then these promises will end soon, right?
Mm.
And it's not promising you that you'll have loads of money. In fact,
yeah.
you might have next to no fucking money, but you will be provided with your needs and not your ego's desires. And in the end, when your ego's desires become what you need, then you've got peace of mind then, right? So when you get your need and your desires are both met, there's no disturbance then. It's true
So is that the
acceptance.
place of neutrality?
Place of neutrality, because the place of neutrality is when the left and the right brain are working harmoniously with one another. So there's a cooperation that takes place, but it can only be balanced outside of the brain and the mind. That's why the solution's in the heart, right?
Spiritual,
Yeah, and that's
spiritual
why all the
solution.
thing about the middle eye really is the connection to the heart. That's the third eye. And if you look onto the scales of justice, you'll see that above there is that it's looking down on the lunacy of the human being. Ken used to say to me, used to say to me, it's like Michael and God were looking down, and Michael nudges God like that and says, "Look, God, look what they're doing now." And that's where my life's come up to is I look at the world. I mean, there's some horrendous things. I'm not detached from the feeling of all this bollocks that's going on.
Yeah,
But I look at it and I think, what a load of old nonsense.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we're doing all
And
right, mate.
I think we are. I think we are. We've. I have no idea what we've spoken about. Like, but
I'll play this back, and when I'm playing the back, oh, I've got a good one in there, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Because I've
yeah,
got
yeah,
that's who I am. Like it's like, oh yeah, or maybe next time I'll chuck that joke in because it fitted good there, and
yeah,
all. That's it, mate. That's who I am. This is who I am, right?
yeah,
I'm not making anything up, but I'm making everything up at the
yeah,
same time. That's the,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
So if you're going through shit, anybody, I mean, we're not like experts. All we are is we've just found out a little bit more about ourselves. And there'll be a general standard. If you're a human being, some of this may be happening to you. But if you're keeping anything in, you might have done horrendously terrible things, right? Okay. So go find somebody that you can trust and say, I've done this, right? Because then if you're in a position to do that and you're willing to do that, then you're in exactly the right place, right? And by sharing that with another person, let me give you some clues. When I was on the drink, I needed to get money from somewhere. So I was working in a place where I could steal stuff, right? And I could sell it in the pub, right? And that's what I used to do. So my sponsor said to me, he said, well, you can't really go back there, right, and say I've done that
Yeah.
because you might end up in prison, and you're no good in prison and make it in a proper job,
Mm,
right?
mm,
So there's got to be. So go into your heart, right, and ask, what's the best way for me to do this? And I calculated in my mind, right, how much. And then I used to pay it off a tenner a week by
mm,
putting it in the box in the church. See what I mean?
mm.
And
Yeah,
then came a point where Right. Came a point where I got this. Okay, that's done now, that one.
mm,
And that's happened with other areas as well,
yeah,
you know what I mean? And
yeah,
anybody that I've
absolutely.
hurt in the past, either because of me drinking or not drinking, because don't forget, people think that, oh, it's drink that caused this. No, it isn't. It's drink that brought it out, right?
Yeah,
This is the thing. People think that I've stopped drinking now, so I'm like healed. No, you're fucking not, right? You've got to go deeper and you've almost got to like rebalance it. Well, how do you rebalance it? You take the opposite action than you did in the first place, right? So it's a process of going backwards to go forwards, right? So that was the way I did that one. And you just get a feeling, right? But Gary, you know that I could share anything about my life with you. I have done, haven't I? I
mm,
have done. I don't think there's
mm.
anything else there. If anything popped up, mate, right, I'd say, look, this is playing on my mind. I'd just get it off my chest. Like, is that it? Yeah. And then we talk about something else then. And I put the phone down and think, I wonder why I phoned him up. Right.
So yeah, Vinny used to call it shaming the devil, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, shame the devil, but you got to shame the devil with another human being because
Yeah,
God or spirit or the universe or source that already knows everything
yeah,
that you've done. You're only rediscovering, and then when you get one of them, is oh, I forgot about that.
yeah,
If it's causing me disturbance, right, I get onto you. It
yeah,
gets it gets annihilated. A good nice word, annihilated.
yeah. A first job is to quieten the disturbance.
Yeah. And
First
we
job.
have to, and sometimes we have to phone somebody up and talk about it. Sometimes we have to take an action. That's the
Yeah.
hard part. Do I
Well,
have to?
phoning someone up is taking an action.
It is, but sometimes they say, no, no, you'll have to go back now because you've said yes, you'll do something. You really don't want to do it because it doesn't feel right. So you've been a people pleaser. Get back onto them and say, look, I said yeah, I'd do
Yeah.
it. I'm sorry, I can't do it now, so I'm taking it away. Now, if they get upset by that, your truth, that is nothing to do with you.
No.
Because Gary, I would do something, promise you, and then I'd go and try and say, look, I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
See your face change, right? And then I'd say, oh, okay, then I'll do it, you see. So I was always compromising
Yeah.
my real
That's that
self.
skill set, isn't it?
It is. And you don't come to it. So let's talk about spiritual experience, right? There's two types of spiritual experience. There's the one that goes kapow, right?
Mm.
And you understand the universe and everything, right? And
Yeah.
you get a
Burning bush.
massive
Yeah.
psychic change. But then there's another one that goes on, which is called of the educational variety. And
Yeah.
I think that those two things are happening all the time. You can say one thing and it takes it's like splitting the Gordian knot. You can go poof and that gets taken away from you and released. Then you can have a massive change and you just woo, that's fantastic. And
Yeah.
here's the other thing is people see you change before you can see it yourself
Yep.
often.
Absolutely. More is constantly revealed.
Yeah, yeah. And so
That's the
this is
problem, isn't
and the spiritual life's not a theory because it to me now it's all becomes about energy and time management. So this is about time and energy.
it? Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
bit like when I was on drink and when I was taking other. I was in a room once where they were like there was like a herbal smell in the room and it was very concentrated. And the more I inhaled this this smell, very nice. It was like roses burning, right?
Yeah.
And the more the music slowed down, boom. I remember Depeche Mode, people are people, so how could it be? And then I started to love everybody, and I got hungry at the same time, right? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
not only am I
I do.
drunk, right, but I've got all this smoke going into my body, and it
Yeah.
changed my biochemistry. It changed the frequency of me processing, and it changed my perception and what the world was like. And I can get to that place now, Gary, not being a big smart ass, but only through practice. If I do Tai Chi and I get me breathing going with it with a positive emotion, I can bring in that feeling of, ooh. And it's like blue becomes bluier, right? The
Yeah. Yeah.
sound becomes beautiful. We go from a mundane perception into a complete spirituality where the colors are more vibrant. And see, I'm becoming
So is that
artistically,
what's that
poetically.
we I can't remember what we were talking it was ages ago we were talking about what's that is it DMT that drug
Oh
called
yeah, yeah,
the god
tryptamine.
yeah the god drug um didn't you say that you can produce that naturally?
Yeah, it gets produced naturally by living in love. Yeah, what happens is you get like ambrosia and the nectar, and you know when you like slobber. You don't really like slobbering because it's all to do with really the feminine energy, which works through the vagus nerve. So there's all
Yeah.
this stuff called the polyvagal theory. But when we're in this defensiveness, the mother in us like snaps down and says, "Be careful." So there's all that that goes on. But when you're really happy, you find like you're like slobbering and you've got like a sweet taste. That's the land of milk and honey, mate. And it's all to
Right.
do with yeah. It's not only just to do with well, serotonin, that's 5-hydroxytryptamine. And then you've got DMT as well, right? Which is a sort of step up and a slight molecular change from that, right?
Yeah.
You can change that by through actions and through positive emotion. However, it's also linked to melatonin in the pineal gland as well. So when you get the pineal gland working in perfect harmony, it's almost like a neutral point. That changes the biochemistry of serotonin to dimethyltryptamine. Right, there's loads of stuff on this now, and it's all coming to the fore. However, you can get a dimethyltryptamine response by taking magic mushrooms, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that psilocybin effect, you have to be careful because you can never tell who you're working with and what it's going to do. And that's why I'm not opposed to people taking drugs because I do think that sometimes drugs can give you an indication of what's possible. But you have to leave, in my view, I have to leave the drugs down and live a clean life to
Mm.
take the natural actions that will lead me to that. And I think that's what this is all about. However, I could be wrong here. I'll hopefully never take a mind altering type substance again, right?
Yeah.
Unless it's
Same.
chocolate and coffee. So
Yeah.
because it says, doesn't it, in the book, in that Doctor Alcoholic Addict, it says, you know, for I have really lost it's something about to chemical peace of mind because there's always natural energetic solutions to even headaches and pain and stuff like that. But I don't know the answers to everything. And I got like this double pneumonia. Gary, I had to have an
Yeah, yeah.
antibiotic. I was part of me was fighting against me, but I know that was me ego, and I was getting no, just take this antibiotic. And after 2 days, it was starting to clear, and it was better. So I don't knock medicine. It says in the book, doesn't it? We don't
We're not
discard the
doctors.
medical and the religious professions because sometimes they've got some answers that might be useful to us.
Mm, mm. Yeah, no, absolutely. What was I going to say then? It's gone. It's gone. It's gone.
Well, I reckon that we've come to a sort of natural conclusion there, mate.
I, I've no
One
idea what
hour,
we've been talking about.
1 hour and 37 minutes we've been going on about.
Have we?
Yeah, we have, yeah. Yeah. But
Fucking
that's
hell.
but that's like it. Where did the time go? Where
Yeah,
did the time go?
fucking hell.
So thanks very much, mate. And I hope people just to say that probably the most simple way to get out of your head and into your heart is to focus on feelings first. And if you can focus on feelings by placing your hand on your heart, because this is generally considered to be the like symbol of feelings, and you can bring in a thought that brings with it a lovely, compassionate, caring, loving, kindly feeling. And when you've got that feeling, you can dismiss the head then because it's just done its job. It's working for you.
Mm,
So
mm.
you've got the feeling now, and it's to try and breathe that feeling of love and whatever you want to, love in. So you breathe in. Imagine that's coming in from the palm of your hand. Look, my hand's all shiny. So you put that feeling there and you breathe it in through your nose. So it's in through your nose and out through your nose, because we get taught this, breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. That's not necessarily a good thing. Anyway, I digress. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, 5, out, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you do that for 3 10-minute sessions a day, focusing on the feeling of love, right? It will change the way your brain's work and it will take you from beta to alpha theta consciousness. And that's the place of neutrality.
Rewiring it.
Well, the rewiring comes when you stay in that and you act upon that then, because it's the action in that neutral state of positivity and love that rewires your neural pathways. So you're not actually battering anything or fighting with anything. It's just that the old habitual pathways die off then because
Yeah.
you're not giving it any energy anymore. Because for by this time, we have ceased fighting anybody or anything. It means
Yeah.
that we don't give it any energy because the more you resist it, the more it gets strong and the more it keeps you in the loop. So it's almost like you disregard it and put it into Coventry and then it dies off by itself as you
Would you
create a
call that
new
surrendering to win?
surrendering to win. And that's what Tai Chi, it's what Qi Gong is going with the Tao. It's the Tao that leads you. But isn't that something outside of myself? No, it's not. It's the real you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've touched on a lot here, and I've learned a lot, mate. I can see how it's all filling in,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I've still got to clean my bedroom, but I can't be arsed, so I mean, I'll have to think about that
Do it
now.
then. Do it tomorrow.
Gary, I love you, mate, and thank you very
Love
much.
you too.
And I'll put this up. I'll download it and upload it onto YouTube. And may the force remain with you forever and ever. And only partus of filio et spiritu tui sancti. Ta-ra.
All right, mate.
Thanks, everyone. Bye bye.